What is going on, my beautiful LARPers and LARPettes? Today we're going to go over something very cool, very popular. These two chassis systems here by two different companies. This is the Flux Defense Raider to my left, and this is the new Strike Industries SMC to my right. This one just came out not too long ago. The Flux has been out for quite a while now. But this one I'm going to refer to as the SMC, and I'll just call this one the Flux Raider or Raider, whatever the hell comes out of my mouth, but this is the Flux. They are made for the SIG P320 handguns that you could drop an FCU into each of these and put your own slides and stuff like that. But anyways, before I get into anything, what is my relationship with these two companies? Flux did not send this out to me. I did buy this from Flux Defense. And this one here from Strike Industries, I did get this for free. They did not pay me to do this review or anything like that. They just sent me the chassis system with a brace that you see here that I'll get into a little bit later. But I just want to go ahead and tell you guys that I am going to be completely unbiased with this review. I just want to help you out to make a better choice if you were deciding to purchase one over the other. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll gather enough information to give you a good blueprint on what you want for yourself. Just wanted to get that out of the way, guys. I want to go ahead and start this off by going over the slides and just skimming through them, just because the slides are kind of subjective to what you prefer. I have these two set up kind of similar in a way, and so on these two I do have rival arms slides, and I do have Faxon firearms barrels with a Faxon firearm comp on this guy, but I do have a Harrington arms comp on this one over here, and I do have some upgrades on this one that I'm going to get into a little bit later because it does kind of compare to what I'm going to get into on the Strike Industries. So just wanted to go over the top halves for you really quick. Now to start off, what you're actually getting on the chassis itself. So right at the back here on the Flux, you do have a 1913 style rail here that you can put pretty much any optic that has a 1913 style mount on that guy there. And on the Strike Industries SMC here, you do have this adapter that you can take on and off for your optics. So you do have this optic plate that pretty much has all the hole options for any optic that you want to directly mount onto there. But the cool thing is that you can take this off, and if you wanted to run a dot on your slide itself, you can very well do that without this portion on. Unfortunately, on the Flux, you cannot do that because that 1913 style section there, it's molded to the receiver. I have seen some people cut that straight off, but it kind of defeats the purpose on having that actual piece connected to the receiver itself. So in that regard, I kind of prefer the SMC over the Flux on the optic mounting portion. Now, next up on the list is the brace options. So the braces on these two, I'm kind of kicking around which one do I think I like more than the other. It's kind of a toss-up and depending on what I'm doing with it, right? So on the Flux here, you do have a very cool way to deploy that brace. You have these two arms here that connect to the brace portion itself, but when you're shooting it, it is kind of close to your body where you have to scrunch up a little bit. So if you're a bigger guy, it might be a little too compact of a feeling for you to use that brace here, and it is completely locked out to the last position. So if you're a tinier person, you can actually adjust the position, I think 4 times to get it to your liking. And the way you deploy that is with this little lever here, which I think is very cool to have on this guy. And on the SMC side, you do have a 1913 rail in the back where you can add any brace you want that has a 1913 adapter. So I can put this Strike dual folder brace on here, or I can put one of those SIG MPX, MCX braces that I want onto this guy, or whatever brace option you want to put on this guy here. And on the topic of braces, this brace did not come with the Strike chassis. Unfortunately, it does not come with any brace at all. So you have to go out and purchase that as a separate purchase. So if you're looking at different options here, the Flux does have a brace that comes with it. And I think it's a lot cooler than the SMC over here just because of the way it deploys. This one, the way it's set up, I can fold it to the right or I can fold it to the left if I wanted to, depending on what I'm doing with it. But as far as deployment goes, the Flux is a lot faster. So if you're actually looking at it here, I'll bring out a bag. This is my smallest backpack I have here. It's a Haley Strategic's flat pack, right? And I'm gonna demonstrate with the Flux here, or the SMC here first. So the SMC, I have it folded to the right. It very well fits in the bag. But if I were gonna open that and deploy it, I have to zip it open or unzip it, pull that out, use my left hand to deploy that brace, and then go to work. As opposed to the Flux, where it literally just sits in there like that. So when I do open it, one-handed operation, and I'm good to go. So as far as deployment goes, the Flux, I feel, is definitely better than the SMC here to deploy it. And also, if you're looking at one-handed manipulation, the Flux does have that advantage over the SMC, just because if you're grabbing this out of a bag and starting to shoot it, right, you can't really deploy this brace unless you use another hand, or you kind of push on the back of it, and it just gets awkward, guys. You can't really deploy this with one hand. So the Flux brace is not as comfortable as whatever brace I put on here, because you do just get these two bars. So when you are shooting it, your face is kind of banging up against these bars here. And on the SMC on this side, what I have here is super comfortable compared to the Flux. But again, it's subjective for whatever brace you put on there. And before I forget, while folded, it is wider than the Flux here. And now that I'm already on the topic of how they look next to each other, they are basically neck and neck when it comes to how long they are. So any bag that this can fit into, this one's gonna be able to fit into. But depending on how your brace is, if it's skinnier than this, maybe. If it's fatter than this, it's gonna be a little bit worse of a print. But you can fit these in basically the same bags, as long as they're not skinnier than each other. And on the Flux here, you have a QD right there, and you also have a QD on the brace. On the Strike, you have a QD on the right. On the left side, when you fold this brace over, it does have a QD option on that, as well as a QD option on the back of the brace itself. This one does not have options on the right side, unfortunately. So the SMC does have more QD options compared to the Flux. You do have a accessory rail on the front of this Strike SMC, and I did put this little magazine holder that comes with the SMC that sits pretty nice in my hands. And I could also take this off and put a flashlight if I wanted to on the front of that guy. Now on the Flux, you do have a accessory rail where you can add flashlights or whatever you needed on the front of that guy there. And the magazine holder is molded to the chassis system itself. I personally like the Flux better than the Strike. The Strike one is basically your simple mag push button here, and that's all you have going on there. And on the Flux here, it's kind of similar on the way it holds your magazine, but the way you release it is with this push button right here. And you could just take that guy out. So I feel like this is an easier, faster way to take out your magazines. It wasn't crazy faster than the SMC, but it definitely was faster on the way I would reload it. And it's just more efficient. So on the SMC, the way I reload, so I would go empty, right? Drop the magazine, then I would come up here, pull this magazine out, insert that magazine in, then I would hit that slide release. On the Flux, it's less steps, so it's pretty cool the way you release the magazines. This button here that releases the front magazine does have a dual option, I guess. So if you press it all the way down, it releases your spent magazine or whatever magazine you have in the grip here at the same time while you're taking this magazine out. So just to demonstrate again, I can go release, and then right here, this lever here that ejects the brace also acts as a slide release. So I can push that down at the same time while I'm inserting a mag. So that just cuts down the time on my reloads compared to the SMC. It's not that big of a huge deal to reload these two. If you get good enough, you can reload them both pretty fast, but on the Flux, it's just a little bit more intuitive when it comes to reloading. Also, when you are reloading, it is easier to reload the Flux just because it has this pretty big flared out Magwell right here. I do not have a Magwell for the SMC here to reload and give me easier reloads. Strike Industries does sell Magwells for this. I don't know if they're out yet, but they are selling Magwells for this. So right off the bat, that's an accessory that you're gonna have to add on and purchase. And on the Flux, you do not have to add that on. It's already integrated into the chassis itself, which is pretty cool. Now let me talk about the charging handles really quick. On this SMC, it did come with this charging handle that is able to be swapped to the right or the left. And on the Flux, I had to purchase this separately from Tactical Development. This one has a little nice green front sight built in, which is pretty damn cool that that's into the charging handle itself. But as far as charging handles go, I don't know if I'm gonna prefer this one over this one. I mean, I could definitely just put this one on and put it onto the SMC itself. And for you guys out there too that have a SMC already that came with this little charging handle here, be very careful, because what I do sometimes is I will shoot and I would have my thumb up like this. And when I shoot, it will induce a malfunction. And so right when it fires, I kind of keep that slide from going back by it hitting my thumb. It does hurt a little bit, but I mean, it's not gonna break your thumb off. So just be very careful keeping your thumb up when you do shoot this SMC. If it does become a problem, just swap it to the right side, but that kind of makes it where you kind of got to reach over now like an AK or go underneath to do that. So, but it is cool that Strike does give you this in the package itself. And I'll go over at the end on what you actually get out of these two chassis systems, like all the accessories that it comes with. Now let's move on to the safety here. As you can see on the SMC, you do not have a safety. You do have the option of putting a safety if you have the FCU that has the safety with it, or the, what is it, the M17 P320, and you do just have to cut out that little portion that they have notched out already for you, so that way your safety can fit in there. But the general populace, I do not think they're gonna have safeties on their P320 FCUs. So the downside to the SMC, unfortunately, is going to be the safeties as well, just because on the Flux, you have an external safety that's similar to the AR-15. You just flip that down when you need to fire, flip it back up when you don't. This one is an aftermarket safety. The one that came with the Flux was a little bit stiff, which makes sense, right? If you're gonna stick this in a bag, cocked and ready to go, you want to have a stiffer safety. This one isn't where it's gonna accidentally flip down on me, but it is a little bit more extended where it can snag on something easier than the original did. I feel like it's better to have a safety on the gun rather than not having a safety on this. Unfortunately, I would not use this with a round in the chamber and sticking it in a bag. It's just a lot of room for error for that to snag on something in a bag or somewhere. Now let's move on to the ergonomics of the gun. The ergonomics on the Flux are very comfortable. You get a nice little grip here, but the grip is kind of small. Again, I don't have large hands, but I do have some overhang. So some of you guys out there that do have larger hands are probably gonna have your pinky hanging off of this guy or something like that. On the SMC, it's a pretty decently sized, it's a full-size P320 grip basically. You do have some nice ridges on the front and the back for more grip, but it is not as rounded off as the Flux is. It's a little bit more squared out, a little bit more futuristic looking, which I think is cool. But basically it comes down to personal preference on what grip you like on the two. The SMC is not as round as the Flux. So bottom line, whatever you think's more ergonomic to yourself, go for it. So I did not mention what comes with each one of these when you do get them in the boxes, but the Flux is basically just the chassis system itself. No optic, no charging handle, no ledge here, no light, no extended safety, just the chassis system itself. On the SMC, you get tons of stuff. You get the magazine holder, you get this optic mounting plate, which pretty much should come with it, right? In that box, you do get tons and tons of screws and different mounting options in there for any optic that you have. you do get this charging handle as well. And you also have the option of swapping out these side panels. These side panels are plastic on this guy, and they're like 1911 style side panels. You can just pop these off and put different colors and stuff like that on there. Oh, also the magazine release is ambidextrous on here, which is kind of it's kind of a point that I wanted to make on the Flux here, that it is not fully ambidextrous. So this is not left-handed friendly. That can be a huge downside for a large percentage of you guys out there, because this isn't left-handed friendly. So I believe they do have braces that are left-handed friendly, but as far as the controls, you are not able to manipulate it the same way as you would as a righty. So I don't even know how it, okay, so I can switch the safety onto the left side, so that's doable. But if I were to release the magazine, I'd have to kind of push this guy forward, or do it, I guess I can do it that way. So I guess I can kind of put it that way. But I think the two major things would be the slide release here. So you don't have a slide release lever on this side. I don't know if you, no, you can't put one on the left side. So yeah, the one I have isn't left-handed friendly. I don't know if Flux is making a left-handed specific, but on the SMC it is completely ambidextrous. I mean, the brace you can fold both ways. It swings both ways. Controls left and right. You can switch the magazine to the right and left. I believe you can switch the magazine on the mag holder on the left and right as well. And you can switch this charging handle on the right and left. So fully ambidextrous, not fully ambidextrous. And the last thing I want to talk about is modularity. So the SMC is going to be a lot more modular than the Flux here. Unfortunately, the Flux, I don't really see a ton of upgrades, because it's pretty much a full package already, right? You got your brace, you don't need to put a brace on there. The magazine well is already integrated. There's really nothing else that you can put on this guy to make it better than what it is. I did add this little tactical development ledge here, so that way it gives my finger an indexing point, because I did sometimes do the same thing that I did with this SMC, where I would put my thumb up like this, and I would kind of induce a malfunction by hitting that lever there. But that's the reason why I put this ledge, not because I wanted some more leverage, I just wanted an indexing point for my thumb. Maybe that's another thing that I could add back onto the SMC, if they were to add a little ledge here where I can put my finger just to give myself an indexing point. But if I don't have an indexing point, my finger's kind of floating on top of itself, because when I'm actually shooting a handgun, my finger's indexing on my other thumb here, right? So when I'm just here like this and my finger's floating, I don't really have anywhere to put it. So when I kind of get my full grip, I feel like I'm slipping off the gun if I'm putting it down here compared to up here. It's weird. Maybe it's just me, but just wanted to point that out. Back on the accessories, I did put this on, tactical development, and then I did put this little safety selector here. Other than that, I have seen tactical development make a little like shroud, a barrel shroud that goes over this, that you can mount something on top, some 1913 style. I have seen some people alter this where you can just run a dot on your slide, but I haven't really seen tons and tons of accessories for the Flux Raider. On the flip side, on the SMC, it is completely modular. Like, you can take, like on this back portion here, you take these two screws off and you could take this part off, and I believe there's a plate where you can just use it as an actual, without this portion back here where you can put a brace on, you can use it as an actual aluminum P320 frame. So that's really cool. And also they are coming out with this portion that's going to turn it into like this bigger chassis system, where it's going to have a full top rail here. I do have a video, one of the first videos actually that I put up on my YouTube is about the Strike Industries SMC. Back when I first posted it, they were naming it the Strike Industries Rampage and the Strike Industries Rampage Pro. So the Rampage was this one here. The Rampage Pro was the bigger, crazier looking one that I had there, where it had the charging handle in the back and stuff. So if you look back at that video and you see the Rampage Pro, all the parts and pieces that are on that guy, they're going to sell separately. I'm not sure when, but they are going to sell separately where you can make it look like that, which I think is very cool, that they have so many options to put onto these chassis systems. They're also going to sell integrated compensator where you can screw right onto here, and you don't really need a threaded barrel and comp to put on that. So I can literally take this barrel off, put a stock barrel without the compensator, and have the compensator built into the chassis itself. A huge plus on Strike Industries side for the modularity of it. I mean, they do have modular in the name itself. So it's great that Strike is doing that. Flux, unfortunately, does not have a lot of accessories, but it's not really a whole lot that I would change on this guy. I mean, when it comes to these chassis systems, guys, it's basically what it boils down to what you want. Do you want something that's basically ready to go off the bat, or do you want something that you can accessorize and you can customize yourself and get it set up the way you want? All right, guys, now that I went over everything, I can't really say which one I prefer over the other. The major thing that just pushes me over to the Flux side is just the fact that there's a safety, but that doesn't mean that I can't get an FCU with a safety in here, because as soon as I put a safety in here, then things change. Then it's down to how modular the two are and how I liked one brace over the other. It just goes down to that. At this point in time, I can't really say that I like one over the other because I like them both for specific reasons. Shootability is basically the same. I do have compensators on the both of them. I was shooting the same ammo. I didn't really sense that one was smoother than the other, just because it's going to be subjective to the way you have your gun set up with the compensators and stuff. For all I know, this compensator works better than this, or they both work the same. I don't know. I can't really speak on one shoots softer than the other or shoot smoother than the other, but they do shoot very similar. But yeah, guys, I just like these for specific reasons. This one I prefer a lot of things over this one, and this one I prefer a lot of things over this one, so I can't really make a completely biased choice. And again, I was trying to be unbiased for you guys. It just boils down to what you prefer. They are both great chassis systems. I've been shooting this one since before it even came out. Strike Industries did not send me one before it came out, but they did have me go out and shoot thousands of rounds through one of them, and I do have a couple thousand through this Flux, but this Flux is already a proven platform because it's been out a lot longer than the SMC, but so far they haven't been giving me problems. I know on the SMC, and I don't know if it's the Flux, but if you are adding compensators, and also depending on the length of your slide, I think you have to tune the springs to the compensators, to the slides, or whatever ammo you're shooting, so they can be a little bit finicky from what I hear. So just keep that in mind. If you do buy one and you do start having malfunctions, just mess with the springs and stuff like that. But from my experience, I just slapped in whatever parts I had in there, and they're both working fine. So yeah, there you go. So all in all, I think they are both very cool chassis systems. I think they both shine in their own specific ways. And here is the biggest thing that I have to mention, guys, is the availability on the two. Unfortunately, with Flux, it is very difficult to get your hands on one of these. And then when you can get your hands on one of these, maybe on Gunbroker or something like that, they are pretty pricey. And when they do come out, when they do have inventory on these, they sell out super fast and they crash your site and all that normal rarity type problems that you have. I have talked to the guys at Flux before, and they did say that they were gonna ramp up production on these. I don't know when specifically, hopefully sometime soon, but that is the big downside to the Flux that I see, is the fact that it's very hard to get. As opposed to the SMC, from what I know is that Strike is going to be able to keep up with demand. I don't know if that is going to be true or not. Hopefully they stay true to their word and keep up with that demand, because I think this is going to be a very popular chassis system. Now, guys, I do have videos on each one of these on my page individually. So I have one of the Flux by itself and on the SMC. Definitely scroll down through my YouTube page and get a better in-depth view on these two here. Again, I appreciate you all. Hopefully I helped you make a decision and didn't confuse you too much. Thank you, guys. Love you all. Catch you in the next one. But on the and fit these in